What's up guys, this is KD Cloudy, and if you've been following the news lately, chances are you might have heard or read about this thing called Fuchsia OS, which is supposedly Google's future Android replacement. Now, there's a bunch of scattered unclear information all around the internet, so in this video I'll basically try to consolidate everything and explain all the stuff to hopefully clear things out. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Now before we start talking about Fuchsia directly itself, you must know what is a kernel. A kernel is basically the core of an operating system which manages and handles how the code and the software interacts with the hardware and is basically the main contributor when it comes to performance. Now Windows uses Windows NT as its kernel, iOS uses Unix as its kernel, and Android through all these years has been using Linux as its main kernel. Now coming back to Fuchsia, back in last year 2016, sometime around August or September, Google mysteriously uploaded a bunch of source code and project files up on GitHub without an announcement, just out of the blue, and we were all clueless what it was. And since then, developers and a bunch of media outlets were trying to find out what it was. And after a lot of work, they found out that it was a new OS designed from scratch, in no way related to Android, and it was called Fuchsia. Now the most striking thing about Fuchsia is that unlike Android, which is a Linux based OS, Fuchsia is based on a custom designed kernel called Magenta. Now Magenta is a totally new kernel designed by Google from scratch, and it's supposed to bring more optimization and more performance out of existing hardware as compared to Linux. Now back in August, if you tried to compile and run Fuchsia, you would basically have this command line screen. But fast forward to May 2017, boom, we actually have functional UI concepts for Fuchsia OS. And here's where stuff gets interesting. Now most operating systems follow a certain design language or UI concept, and it's consistent throughout all the iterations of that particular OS. Like Windows, in all its versions it has a taskbar at the bottom, it has a start menu or a start screen, and Android there's a bunch of icons at the bottom, there is a navigation bar and stuff like that. And some companies even like to name and brand their UI design concept, like Apple's iOS design concept is called Cocoa Touch UI, and a similar thing is going on with Fuchsia OS. Their latest UI design language is called Project Armadillo. It's still in its early stages, so it's hard to judge it, but so far it looks really good. Now this entire Project Armadillo thing which you see on screen right now was coded on a cross-platform SDK, which means that it was possible to compile it as an APK for your Android device, which means that you can download the APK right now, linked in the description, and experience Fuchsia OS by yourself. But having used it for a while, it basically seems to be a next generation evolution of material design in terms of style, but it's totally different from how we see Android or any skin of Android. It's a totally rethought concept. But the main point is that what's even the purpose of Fuchsia OS? I mean, why would Google want to build another OS when they already have Android and also Chrome OS? Well, we don't know. We haven't heard a single word from Google regarding this project, except for the fact it's here to stay and it's not just a gimmicky side project. And Project Armadillo, paired with the new Magenta kernel, is supposed to bring some buttery smooth performance with animation frame rates going as high as 120 frames per second. So that's definitely really cool. Now the rest of the things about Fuchsia OS is still under wraps, and we don't know pretty much anything, and most of it is under speculation. And what I speculate is that Google itself isn't sure how they are going to implement and do with the whole Fuchsia thing, but they're still experimenting with software, and they're basically seeing what they could achieve with software if they rethought everything, redid everything, and started from scratch. And while there are some people out there who like to call Fuchsia as the successor of Android, I think it's going to be a pretty hard thing to do because Android already has a collection and an ecosystem of over 1 million apps and billions of downloads, and over here at Fuchsia we have zero development, zero apps. So that gap and the transition between Android to Fuchsia is something which is going to be really tough. And if Google decides to succeed Android with Fuchsia, it's going to be really interesting how Google carries out that transition. But yeah, I'm overall really excited and pumped for Fuchsia OS and to see how that goes, while also seeing how Android improves and progresses, and also what Google has to say in Google I/O 2017, which is just next week. But one thing I really wish is that it doesn't end up being in the same condition as Project Tara. But either way, that's the end of this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.